Today we're going to continue and finish our amigurumi project. We'll start with creating the legs for the creature. Start with a magic loop, and to do this you create a loop like this. Then work 6 or 7 single crochets in the loop. Then we'll pull this yarn and tighten the loop. Now it's time to work single crochets into every stitch. That is 6 or 7 single crochets. Continue like this and eventually you will get a small cylinder shape. You don't have to increase since we want this shape to stay straight, so to speak. And here is where we're going to attach it later. Now let's tuck in the yarn. Now I've crocheted a couple of rounds, so it's time to cut the yarn, and I'm always finishing with the invisible edge technique. Insert the hook like this, and then grab the yarn and pull through. Then you create a mock stitch, so to speak, and this way the edge will become easy to stitch onto later. Now let's tuck in some stuffing. I'm using an old wool yarn for this, but you can use just about anything you have at hand. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to create a human-like character or a four-legged creature, but I think I'm gonna go with a dog. So let's attach the head first. Measure where the head is supposed to be and then start stitching the head onto the body. I'm using simple stitches to cast on the head, but you can use any stitch you want. I'm going to speed this up a bit, but you're also going to start securing the thread by stitching back and forth a couple of times. And now it's time for the legs. Measure where you want the first leg to be and stitch it onto the body. And now it's time to secure the yarn again, so a couple of stitches back and forth will do. When you want to attach the next leg, you can use the stitch row to measure and determine where the leg should be. And secure the yarn again. And for the next pair of legs, I'm also measuring against the rows so the legs will align. And I'm stitching this leg on as well. And I'm securing the yarn. Like so. And for the fourth leg, you kind of have the coordinates, so to speak, so you know exactly where to put it. And I'm going to start stitching the last leg onto the body. Now we're finished with the rough shape of the amigurumi, and we can start to decorate it with a small nose. Since I've decided that this is going to be a dog, I want the nose to stick out a bit from the face. For this, I'm going to use chain stitches, and this is a stitch where you tuck the thread under the needle before you create the stitch. And I'm going to create a circle with these chain stitches, and I'm going to use them later as a foundation to substitute for a crochet chain. Okay, we're almost done with the circle, and now it's time to start crocheting in the circle. Let's choose my hook of choice. I think I'll take this one. I'm going with the smaller crochet hook for this detail so it won't get too bulky and clumsy. Since I'm using a different yarn, which is also a bit thinner, I'm adjusting by using a smaller hook. And now I'm just going to start crocheting with single crochets into the chain stitches that I embroidered. This technique, that is to embroider onto crochet or even a fabric and crochet into the embroidered chain, comes in handy in many different projects. So it's a great technique to learn. Now I'm only crocheting one single crochet in every stitch at first. Now I'm going to start decreasing so that the nose will look like a dog's nose. And let's change colors to black. And to do this, I'm inserting the hook in these two loops and pulling the black yarn and then I can securely tighten the loop like this. And now I can start crocheting with the black yarn. But first, let's tuck in the end yarn, and this will also create the stuffing that we need for the nose. And I'm going to crochet a couple of rounds with the black yarn. The last thing I'm going to do is stitch the nose. And since I have the black yarn, I'm also going to create a couple of eyes. I'm embroidering like this in one row, but you can embroider however you want, and maybe you want to add a couple of beads as eyes. Personally, I do not prefer to use beads for projects that are supposed to be used by kids because they are not 100% secure. But if you make a project for yourself, you can of course use beads if you want. Now it's time for the tail, and I'm going to use the end yarn to embroider another circle of chain stitches. So I'm using the same technique here as we did with the nose. And when I'm finished, I can start crocheting with this yarn. But it's not that long, so I need to extend the yarn. And I do this by making a knot like this. Now I'm going to crochet with a combination of single crochets and half double crochets. The reason for this is that I want the tail to be a bit curved, and to achieve this I want the inner curve to be shorter than the outer curve. So I'm using single crochets for the inner curve, and when I get to the other side I'm using half double crochets. This way the work has no other choice but to bend a little, because the half double crochets will build more than the single crochets. So the back of the tail I'll do half double crochets, and the front I'll do single crochets. Now you can see that the tail is a bit bent, and this is because we worked half double crochets instead of single crochets. and I'm just going to continue a couple of rounds. Now let's tuck in the end yarn into the tail. It can be a bit tricky because it's so tight, but if you have patience, it will work just fine. Now you can see that the tail is a bit bent because the inner curve is smaller than the outer curve. And let's just secure the yarn. Now we're almost finished, but the amigurumi still needs some ears. So to do this, I'm going to use the same technique as we did with the tail. That is that I'm going to stitch some chain stitches onto the head and then I can crochet in those stitches later. I think 4 chain stitches is enough, like this. And since I have yarn left, I'm going to embroider the other side as well. And I can measure to make sure that the ears will align like this. And now when we are finished with the embroidery, we can start to crochet, and I'm choosing to crochet double-sided, so I'm going to crochet in the front loop. So I'm working single crochets here, and maybe I'll increase a couple of stitches throughout the round. And let's turn the work and start crocheting in the other loop like this. It can be a bit tricky because it's super tight the first round, but it's not impossible, so let's just keep going. And let's increase another one as well. Now I'm going to use the same technique that I did with the tail. That is that I'm going to combine single crochets and half double crochets to create a curve. So the inner curve will consist of single crochets and the outer curve will consist of half double crochets. This way we will get the characteristic dog's ear that will flip over a bit. And now I need to extend the yarn, so I'll just insert the hook into these two loops and pull up the next yarn, and then I can securely tighten the end thread of the previous yarn. And when I get to the end, I'm going to stitch the two sides together like this. And let's tuck in the end yarn and finish with some stitches. And lastly, we'll secure the yarn by stitching a bit back and forth. And here is the finished amigurumi. I hope you enjoyed this video, which is the last one in this series. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.